Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Dragon Prince video. So it's been quite a while since I last did a Dragon Prince video. I think it might have been my Book 2 Sky novelization video that I did, I think. But either way, there hasn't been a lot of Dragon Prince stuff to talk about this year. It's just been another year where the social media has just really been talking about. I think they had like a card game and an RPG game come out, and then there was like 2 or 3 books. That was really it for the year in the Dragon Prince. And I think everyone within the fandom was expecting them to say something, announce something, to have a release date by the end of the year. That is not the case. And even though this update gives you a sense for roughly when the release date's going to be, it's well off, I think, even what people had estimated it was going to be. So it's a weird one in that I appreciate what they are doing here, in that they are now making an effort to communicate more after acknowledging that they haven't been communicating particularly well, but it also feels like it's a little too late. And I'm worried that they've already just sort of damaged a lot of the hype that they have for their series by not saying any of this stuff ages ago. And I think that's probably the main thing I would say about this. This is the update that you probably should have put out 6 months to a year ago, not at the end of 2021 when people are like expecting a release date and a trailer like any week. They go on to explain sort of why, you know, we're maybe a year off in our estimation of when we are maybe expecting this thing. But again, until they put out this update, they didn't really make it clear the way their production necessarily worked. So it's this weird one where it's like, you've got a lot of this backlash yourselves by not communicating, and you are now afterwards trying to explain it away, when if you'd communicated earlier, you probably wouldn't have received as much backlash. So it's such a weird one in terms of my thoughts on this overall. But if they do this more regularly, like they say they're going to do, I will be happy. But I'm still acknowledging that I'm not overly excited about the way they're sort of handling the gap in content of the Dragon Prince. But let's get into it. So, we know many of you have been asking for us to share more information about the Dragon Prince, and that some of you have been disappointed with, if not at times frustrated by, the lack of communication you received in the past year. This is putting it mildly. I appreciate them acknowledging that fans have been upset with them this year. They have not communicated particularly well about the core content. And the main places I really saw this was probably when they did the 2 panels. And both of the panels said, there won't be season 4 news in these panels. And just immediately making you go like, okay, well, I guess there's no trailer coming out here. There's no release date here. So I guess I really don't need to pay that much attention to this panel. And so it's that sense of like, if all you want from communication and updates is literally them talking, I'm sure you're pretty happy with this year. But in terms of actual meaningful updates, they haven't done it until this post. So, you know, a lot of times when companies like this address things, they never ever acknowledge fan frustration or fan disappointment. They've at least said that here, even if they've maybe like diminished it a little bit. But that, you know, they say, we hear you, and more than that, we appreciate you holding us accountable. And that is the case here. Like I just said in my little opening bit there, that, you know, you have to hold them accountable for just a severe lack of communication, because it's been 2 years now. It's been over 2 years since season 3 of The Dragon Prince. It came out in like November. Well, it finished in November, 2019. That's a long time already. And then what this adds on to that, effectively like almost another year and a half, that is still the point at which it's not great. But anyway, so before 2021 draws to a close, we wanted to take a moment to talk about what we've been working on this past year, what's in store for the Dragon Prince next year, as well as pull back the creative curtain and dig deeper into our storytelling approach and development process. So here's all the different sections that they have. But they start off with the Dragon Prince saga, basically just covering the idea that you've already seen the story of the Dragon Prince, basically. But the saga overall includes the story of the Dragon Prince plus more. And they basically cover the idea here that they're going to tell the story of the Dragon Prince over the course of 7 seasons, each season consisting of 9 episodes, so 63 episodes total, that are going to be the series' core narrative journey, which is the Dragon Prince saga. They have now been confirmed by Netflix since like 2020 for all 7 seasons, so that is good. And then here's the information that we got from a panel a few years ago. So we've known about this for a while. I think they've switched the way phase 2 and 3 work, in that I think they've moved a season from phase 3 into phase 2. So we have only a 1 season phase 3 and we have a 3 season phase 2. So phase 1 we've seen already. That is the Dragon Prince story, as you can see here. And that is just getting Zim back to his mother, basically bringing the Dragon Prince back. They're not telling us what phase 2 is called. Now, this is where like they could have given us something, I think, if they really wanted to. I maybe it's spoilery, but you know, this is the thing immediately coming up next. If you're willing to tell us that the next book is called Earth, why can't you just tell us the name of what phase 2 actually is? I don't know, but who knows? Seasons 4, 5, and 6 are phase 2, and then just season 7 is phase 3. Makes me wonder, is there going to be just as big of a gap between season 2 and 3 if it is only 1 season? Probably not, but who knows? Maybe their other stuff might be ready to go at that point. So, yeah, season 2 and 3 will explore different arcs, which we can't wait for you to discover. Now, the way they phrase that makes it seem like, is it going to be different groups of characters here or what? But the fact that the comic that covers content that we haven't seen yet teased the idea that something's happening with the characters that we know, I think it just means the story shifts, of course, from the plot of the first 3 getting Zim back to now something else. That's going to be more of the approach. The next 2 phases are probably the most significant parts and updates. So we chose a phased approach for the Dragon Prince saga because it gave us the ability to tell more expansive stories with richer character development and a stronger sense of progression. You know, so rather than develop each season independently and consecutively, we instead work on multiple seasons simultaneously. This helps craft deeper stories, more complex, and fit together better, basically. The trade-off, however, is time. So this is their explanation behind why things are taking so long, which is the question everyone's asking. While all animation takes a long time to do well, our particular process redistributes a lot of the work needed to script, record, concept, storyboard, and animate 3 entire seasons to the beginning of each phase's development. This in turn creates longer gaps between the end of one phase and the start of another, i.e. where we are now, the gap between season 3 and 4, which is the gap between phase 1 and the start of phase 2. So it's longer than you might expect. For example, we started working on seasons 1 to 3, phase 1, all the way back in 2015, almost 3 years before the first season was even announced. We're now following that same development pattern for seasons 4, 5, and 6, which we kicked off as soon as the series was renewed in 2020. We're spending a similar amount of time up front to make sure we get the story arc for phase 2 just right. Now, here is the actual update for seasons 4, 5, and 6. Season 4 is currently in full production. At this point, the script for all 9 episodes have been written. We've recorded the entire season with the voice actors. Storyboards and animatics are complete. We are now in the process of fully animating each episode with our partners at Bardell Entertainment. This is the section that takes longest because you have to do the finalized animation, of course, and all this other stuff to finish it off. But we've still got a lot of work left before season 4 is done. So it's a little too early to share a release date just yet, but we're currently looking to wrap up sometime in late 2022 at the earliest. Now, the important thing here with the way they phrase this is that they're not talking about release date, as in, you know, we can't share a release date, but it could be late 2022. They're saying production on season 4 will end at earliest late 2022, meaning that the actual release of the season will probably be early 2023, So that's the important thing to realize, is that, you know, they're not going to immediately finish it and it's just immediately out. There will be some bit of a gap, I suppose, between the end of production and the actual release of the show. So that means we're looking at least another year of waiting, if not, you know, and that's if it is, you know, on time, earliest. So they could be wrapping up production in early mid 2023 if they hit some snags, meaning we might not see the release of the show until middle of 2023 or late 2023. So it could be anywhere effectively from 3 to 4 years between seasons, which is just incredible. Like, it's an incredible amount of time to leave in a gap where you're not really doing much else to fill in the time. So that's the problem for me with this show, and why I can't, in a way, on the channel devote that much time to it, because it's off way more than it's on, this franchise, and it needs to really get this stuff on track. So it does mean, the way they explain their process is that once season 4 comes out, I suppose there'll be a pretty good cadence for season 5 then coming out not too long afterwards, and season 6 not too long after that. And then I guess because phase 3 is only one season, the gap will be longer than between the previous seasons, but it will still be more significant for the final season. So that's a little disappointing. They have one image here. I don't think you can read too much into it. They basically don't have anything to say about the video game other than that it's still in active development. This is probably one of the more major disappointments, in that the video game was one of the first additional things they announced for, one, Wonderstorm, but also 2, for the Dragon Prince, and they still have nothing to say about it this long into the franchise. That's very disappointing to me. Expanded World of Zadia, so extra stuff. Book 2 Sky novel, not much to say there. They have the card game, they have the tabletop RPG. The next graphic novel is Blood Moon Huntress, which, you know, is going to be exciting when it comes out. I think April release. So at least there'll be some new story content, but I believe it's more of a flashback thing rather than telling a story in the gap between seasons. They decide for some reason to answer the question, why are you investing so much time in creating all these extensions versus working on the show? And their answer is effectively just that we're not doing that because we work with partners on the different projects. They don't devote all the other time into that. They're putting time into making everything in the Dragon Prince as good as possible. And then they just thank us here. We're looking forward to sharing even more of these kind of updates, including development insights and behind-the-scenes content with greater frequency in 2022. I hope they stick by that. I hope that isn't just words to get over the immediate sort of criticism of the communication this year, and they won't have an update until the end of next year. I hope that's not the case, and that they do much more regular updates on what's actually going on here. We're so grateful for the patience you've shown us. We know it's not always easy. Thanks for sticking with us. We're working hard to make sure the next chapter of Dragon Prince is truly worth the wait. It is, we promise. The Wonderstorm creative team. So, it's an update. It doesn't have much specific information in terms of the stuff we as fans particularly want. It doesn't really have a release date for Season 4. It doesn't tell us anything about Season 4 that we didn't already know. And that's the disappointing thing, is that they want us to be patient, but they're giving us nothing to kind of help with that kind of patience. And the fact that all they really have to say about, like, what's going to get you through the next potentially 18 months, who knows, is one graphic novel. I know they have another one announced for, I think, later next year. That's more focused on what is it, like Viren's Master, I think. It was mentioned in one of the Book 2 Sky novel, I think, some of the details about that. But that's it, just those two. Like, if the video game would say was coming out like next year, that at least would be something to get you through the year. But they basically don't have anything to say about that. And for a franchise where you really led off quite heavily with the idea that it was going to be multimedia, And for the most part, it hasn't been any more multimedia than any other franchise I've seen at all. And it's been less than so many others. Um, it's just this a big example of like, don't tease the idea that you're doing all this other stuff if it's going to take like 5 years into your franchise to actually make any of that stuff a reality. I hope Avatar Studios learns some lessons from what's going on with the Dragon Prince here. And that is that you can't have massive gaps between main content like this. You have to have a bit more of a cadence to this and utilize your extra material really, really well. So Avatar at least has more of an established history of having like comics and like novels and stuff like that now. So it hopefully, if they have planned Avatar Studios properly, shouldn't have many delays once it actually properly gets going. But it's just crazy to think that there's going to be a gap effectively from 2019 to 2023 at the earliest between new episodes of the show. That's insane. And again, to put into context, we thought it was crazy that like the gap between Korra book 1 and 2 was 15 months. And this is going for like 3 times that. So Korra lost quite a bit of its fan base in between book 1 and book 2 just because of how long that delay was. This is arguably an even worse delay because it's longer and there's probably been a bigger sense of a lack of communication the whole time. So I'm wondering how much it will be felt when I suppose the show does come back, if the fandom has fully followed it the whole way. Because my worry here is just that like I think it's too long with too little content. And while this is good, one long post after not talking about the show effectively like almost for 2 years is not really good enough. So I hope they have an update sooner rather than later to say something about next season and tease it to just so we have something to go off. But yeah, that's really what I wanted to talk about here in terms of like, if you need any explanation for why I don't do more regular Dragon Prince content, here's the reason why. They've had to put out an update at the end of the year to address the whole fandom effectively being disappointed with how bad communication has been this year. That tells you the whole story. So they're my thoughts on this update where the Dragon Prince is. I'll continue to like buy the new comics story content when it comes out and review it, but like I said before, I can't devote that many videos to it when there's nothing to really talk about. So I'll cover it when there is stuff to cover. But they're my thoughts on this. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching and bye.